Let's turn to news from Somalia now. The United Nations is calling on government and the United States to not step up its efforts against al-Shabaab. This comes amid U.S. troop deployment in the country, but the UN strongly believes it's not the time for military action in Somalia due to the famine-like conditions in the country. The UN says aid agencies need to be able to operate freely to assist the millions of people affected by malnutrition and hunger. Somalia's president, however, believes a new war against al-Shabaab is imminent. Well, let's get you more on that story now. I'm joined live from Mogadishu by CGTN's Abdulaziz Bilo. Abdulaziz, has the Somali government responded to these concerns that a fresh push against al-Shabaab may hamper aid efforts in the country?
Well, Lindy, there's been no formal comment from the Office of the President or the Prime Minister either in regards to the concerns by the United Nations that a fresh push by Mogadishu against the al-Shabaab militants will hamper the aid delivery efforts here in Somalia. But then again, the President is adamant that a fresh push is imminent to dislodge the al-Shabaab from their last remaining stronghold. The government is saying that its main priority right now is to save lives, and the only way it can do this is by ensuring that aid agencies have an environment that is secure, so that they can be able to reach the vulnerable people in the vast regions of South and Central Somalia. So the government insists that a push against al-Shabaab is imminent, and it's the only way to addressing the recurrent drought crisis that's facing Somalia. And one of the factors that experts here are saying is the reason as to why President Farmajo is pushing for a fresh offensive is the fact that over the past weeks the al-Shabaab has carried out some deadly attacks here in the capital, and it's seen as one of the reasons as to why the government wants to show a fresh push is necessary, so that it can be able to quash the al-Shabaab strength in all these regions. Now, the president yesterday visited the town of Baidoa in the southwest region. This is one of the regions that have been affected by the drought. We are talking about hundreds of people who've died because of cholera and because of a lack of water. So the government there said, the president there said rather, that the main priority for his government is to alleviate the suffering of the drought victims. And not far from where the president is a region called Bakol, where the al-Shabaab has blockaded this region. So the only way to reach these areas for aid agencies is through airplanes. So it has become a major concern for authorities, and that's why President Farmajo insists that a fresh push is the only solution to addressing just the security, but also the humanitarian aspect here in Somalia, Lindy.
And you mentioned, of course, the devastation that's hit a place like Baidoa, but perhaps just give us an idea of the broader droughts and famine-like conditions in Somalia. Just what is the scale of the challenge at the moment in terms of how much aid agencies have to try and deal with?
Well, Lindy, according to the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, that is a UN entity here, it's saying that 6.2 million is the population that is in need of food assistance. And the UN says that it has managed to deliver aid to some 1.7 million people in South and Central, and also some parts of northwestern Somalia. These are some of the regions that have been worst affected. Now, the interesting part is that the drought has caused mass migration here and mass displacement. We're talking about more than 500,000 people who have been displaced from their rural villages. They've moved to urban centers where the UN and also Somali international NGOs are ramping up measures to be able to avert the current crisis here in Somalia. The UN hasn't yet announced a famine situation here in Somalia, but all the aid agencies are saying that if the UN agencies and also the Somali government doesn't push more this aid delivery, and then the situation might escalate and result into famine. So the only effort that's being seen visible here on the ground other than the UN is a Somali-led initiative. Somalis have taken to social media to campaign with hashtags such as Awi Walal, means help a needy brother. It has created thousands of dollars, and they've become the first responders in areas that have been affected by acute water diarrhea, and they've also managed to take food to some of the worst affected areas. So it's a big challenge for authorities here. The government has created the Ministry of Disaster Management. They're saying that that's the only way that the government can coordinate the efforts of ramping up the humanitarian efforts here in Somalia. But for now, it remains a big challenge with lack of rain, Linda, here
a big
in Somalia.
challenge indeed. Thank you very much, Abdulaziz Billah, joining us there from Mogadishu.